look at that, boy. He looks like the voice of college football right there. He's all dressed up and stuff. Oh, it's weird.
What's going on?
Okay, so I'm gonna throw one at you before we get to this Big Ten stuff tonight. I'm gonna throw one at you right now. Chip Kelly's best team ever, and they're gonna beat LSU this weekend. Tell me I'm wrong, Klatt.
I think that you're wildly wrong. His best team ever was a wild play away from winning a national championship. So, no, UCLA is not going to be one snap away from winning a national championship. That's absolutely ludicrous. You could not be more wrong. It might be his best team at UCLA.
Yeah, that's true.
And they may potentially beat LSU, but I think it's going to be a tall order. Listen, Dorian Thompson-Robinson's got to play better than he did against Hawaii, right? Hawaii is basically like a glorified JV team. That's not a huge knock. They're just not very good right now. And he didn't play well last week. If he plays better, then they'll have a shot against LSU. There's no doubt.
That seems very negative to me. Okay, whatever. We'll move past that one. So let's get to this. The Big Ten's doing something here, and I don't know if it's very good. I love it, but they got real teams playing each other week one. I mean, Penn State, Wisconsin, week one. I don't get a layup. I go right to the rim against the bad boy Pistons. So what do you make of the Big Ten having these massive games in week one, like tonight?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I mean, this one's a huge one, obviously, with Ohio State on the road against Minnesota and Ohio State's first game of the year and the first start for their new quarterback, C.J. Stroud. But, we've seen this over the last couple of years. Remember, I know it was a pandemic year, but last year Penn State opened on the road against Indiana, and they lost that game on the Michael Penix reach for the pylon. They did not recover that first month. Remember, they started 0 I believe they were 0-5 going into the Michigan game. So it's difficult. There's no doubt about it, and I can't wait until Saturday. I actually like it, though, because you get the eyes and the focus of the college football world on your conference early in the year. Remember, Indiana and Iowa are going to play early here in the season. So all the focus is going to be on the Big Ten this week. And granted, there's a couple of big ones on Saturday outside of the Big Ten, but the bulk of the college football schedule is going to rest right here in the Big Ten Conference, and they're going to have to go and prove it. Now, that Wisconsin-Penn State game, though, here's what's so interesting is that those are two teams that have bona fide, I would say, expectations to potentially challenge and win their division. Maybe Penn State a little less so because of Ohio State, but certainly Wisconsin. So getting off on the right foot, as was proven a year ago, and Penn State not being able to do that is going to be very important for those two teams.
Yeah, I think Wisconsin's such a great program. Nobody talks about Wisconsin because their coach wears a hoodie and he doesn't sell, he's not a big salesman or anything. He looks like my accountant. But I love Wisconsin. I like what they stand for. It's like Klatt. I like what you stand for. That's like we bring on the show. I like your values. I like Wisconsin's values. Now, here's
I appreciate that. I'm sensing a lot of olive branches being extended here. You want to turn the vibe. You're tired of me stuffing you into a locker every week, and so you're wanting this to be more cordial. I'm with you here. This is good.
Okay, so how about this one? New quarterbacks are fine. Big Ten's pretty interesting at the top. I don't know. This Ohio State kid open up against Minnesota on the road. This doesn't feel like an easy one tonight. Who is this Ohio State quarterback? Can he play?
Yes. Remember, that quarterback room is loaded. While they have zero experience, I think they're the only FBS team with 0 passing attempts in their quarterback room, period. Yeah. But it's still incredibly talented. Remember, they had a 5-star kid, McCord. They've got highly recruited. Quinn Ewers came in. He reclassified and came in. Granted, he's been here like 32 seconds. So C.J. Stroud can play. There's no doubt about it. He got into that Michigan State game last year and went on a 48-yard run. In order to be the quarterback and win a legitimate battle at this school and this program, you got to be able to play. And then here's the thing that I think we should all focus on is, and we do in the NFL a bit, Colin. We talk about the supporting cast, right? What this rookie quarterback doesn't have the supporting cast. This one does. What's the fit? What does it look like all around that player? Well, around C.J. Stroud, it looks unbelievable. They have potentially the best offensive line in the country. In fact, when I'm talking with their coaches, they talk about, when you're talking about the lifetime of NFL contracts sitting on the offensive line just for Ohio State, you're looking at like $250 million in front of C.J. Stroud. They are legit up front. They've got a great stable of running backs, including a guy that no one has seen yet, Travion Henderson, a true freshman. Very excited to see him tonight. They've got the best and deepest stable of wide receivers in all of college football. They've got a guy that potentially could win the Mackey Award as the best tight end in Jeremy Ruckert. It is an embarrassment of riches for C.J. Stroud. So if you're going to come in with no experience, granted at a place with high expectations, but this is the type of offense that you want a quarterback. And I didn't even mention that they've got one of the best minds and play callers in the sport in Ryan Day at the helm.
All right, let's segue over to Michigan. You and I have mostly been supportive of Jim, and I thought his career was flying. Yeah. He was the guy at San Diego and Stanford and the Niners in the Super Bowl and Michigan back-to-back 10-3. And then it just didn't work. And I have this, and then I just read a story in The Athletic today where, listen, he had to redo his staff. The AD sat him down. And I said earlier today, there are certain personalities, Gruden's one, Harbaugh's one, they can bulldoze people. And you got to make sure when you build a staff, you have people on a staff that push back, because Jim will just run you over and Gruden will just run you over. And I do feel like Jim got a little too much power at Michigan based on his Super Bowl and the contract. And I think he needs people to push back. That's my, 30,000 feet view. What do you make of that?
I think that sounds good in theory. I don't think that that's right, because he's been giving up power for a while. Josh Gaddis, remember, came in a couple of years ago and totally changed the offense, and he kind of exited from that role of trying to be the main identity of the offense. I think that this reminds me a lot. Do you remember back in like the early, 2011, 2012, Colin, when Mac Brown had struggled for a couple of years? They go to the national championship in 2009. Colt McCoy goes down. Bama wins. And then they struggle for a couple of years, and then he just fired his whole staff.
Right.
And he brought in all these new guys. Now, if you'll remember, they were very good young coaches, and they have since gone on to have very good careers, but it didn't work at Texas. Brian Harsin was the offensive coordinator of that team back there at Texas. Didn't work out. He had to leave and go back to Boise. Manny Diaz was the defensive coordinator, a nice young defensive coordinator. Didn't work out at Texas. He had to move on. Now he's the head coach at Miami. Of course, Harsin is at Auburn. So it's worked out for those guys. They're good coaches, but it didn't work at Texas. I don't know if this is going to work. I'm also reminded that Bob Stoops transitioned to staff late in his tenure at Oklahoma, and it did work to the Lincoln Rileys of the world. So we've seen this a couple of times. I think it's a 50-50 proposition right now at Michigan. I think Michigan could have a very average 500-type year, and I think they could go back to being a 10-3 team. I think they're the biggest unknown in the Big Ten Conference right now.
All right, so I like Sark a lot, and I like people who stumble in life and give them a second chance, and I'm a big fan of Sark, and I thought he was a great coordinator, and I love that Nick Saban gave him a chance. He won Coordinator of the Year, and he goes to Texas. They got the best running back, in my opinion, in the country. He's always, even at USC, Washington, he can recruit. But they faced Louisiana in the opener, and that team is they're good. Nobody watches them. They're really good. Yep. And I wonder about all this SEC talk, and I look at Texas this year. What is Texas? What does Joel Klatt expect from Texas? Because I'm kind of resting on recruiting. I'm like, well, he likes to run. They got a good back. They'll run the ball. Can they play? Their defense always disappoints me in the last several years. What am I going to get from Texas this year?
That's a great question. I thought he did a great job hiring his staff. Pete Kwiatkowski is their defensive coordinator. I think that was a very good move. I think they should be better on defense, although that remains to be seen. This new quarterback I'm very interested in. Hudson Card, this young kid, they're very high on him. And rest assured that staff, it would have been easier for them to go with Casey Thompson, the older quarterback. Because now they're probably going to lose a guy like Casey Thompson to the transfer portal because the sense of urgency is on him to get on the field, and now he's got a younger kid playing ahead of him at the University of Texas. So it didn't actually behoove them from a roster standpoint to name the young kid the starter. He went out and earned that job. I'm with you on Bijan Robinson. I think he's the best back in the country. He's my number 3 guy right now in the preseason for the Heisman Trophy. This week is a tough one, but to your point, I believe Steve Sarkisian is going to work at Texas because we've seen him work before. Let's not let's not make the mistake of erasing history here. He took over a winless Washington team.
Yeah.
You're from Seattle.
Yeah.
You remember that. Tyrone Willingham went 0-12. And Steve Sarkisian came in there and built what eventually Chris Peterson took over to go to a playoff. Right? Like he got him back to a winning program and then to a perennial bowl team. And then he went to USC and some personal problems derailed that issue there at USC. But he's a really good coordinator. And as long as he's right personally, I think he's going to have a lot of success at Texas. I don't think this whole SEC thing is going to mess with the kids because remember now, they're kids, right? These are 18 to 22-year-olds. They've got blinders on. They can't see further than 5 feet in front of their face. So a lot of times when you talk about the future like that, it really doesn't matter for them. They're not going to hear that noise. I think Texas wins this week, and I think that they have a very good year, and I think they're one of the challengers for Oklahoma in the Big 12.
Okay, so Klatt's doing Ohio State, Minnesota tonight. It's on Fox at 7:30 Eastern. It's going to be fantastic. Penn State, Wisconsin, Saturday. Okay, let me circle back because you kind of brushed off what I thought was a brilliant question. So let's go back to the Chip Kelly thing. I'm going to rephrase it. Who is going to be the best college football team in L.A. in 3 months? USC or UCLA?
Oh, now listen, your first question was okay. It was average. That one was a good one. That's a good question. I'm hoping, I can't see you right now, but Joy, I hope he's sitting back in his chair with like his shoulders kind of puffed up and like, yes, very proud papa style, because that was a good question. Here's the deal. I just don't trust USC to do the right things as far as running the football. Okay, I know they're talented. I'm a fan of their quarterback. I think their defense will be better. But when it comes down to it, that like they just, I don't trust them. And I'm going to trust the run game for UCLA. In 3 months, the best team in LA is the UCLA Bruins.
Whoa! I'll tell you something. Not a terrible start for us. You blew me off. I was okay with it. I was the adult in that situation. I came around, and we had a nice 12, 15-minute talk. I thought you were very good today, Klatt. We're going to bring you on next week.
I thought you were very good. No, listen, your last question in particular kind of saved it, kind of put a bow on it. I thought it was very good. Well done. It's not how you start, Colin. It's how you finish.
Boom. Exactly. Good seeing you, Klatt.
You too.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.